Are we rolling? Okay. My name is Foster de Vries. I am an actress. I'm 28. I don't know what other things you want me to say. Okay. I am an actress. I play Detective Alex Monroe. I played her on Westbound for 3 seasons. And then now I played her on Inferno, which is or was supposed to be the spin-off to Westbound. When I first got Alex, when I received the news that I was going to be Alex, I was very happy. It was my first big part. And originally, it was supposed to be only like a couple of episodes. It was. I got on board for the pilot, and they told me that it was just gonna be a couple of episodes, an arc about like her taking a bullet for the main character, Frank Arden. And then she would get killed in a shootout later because she was very reckless. But she had a big heart for justice. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or if that's like a production secret, but I mean, but then when I was there, and I was shooting, they really liked the character, and so they asked me whether I wanted to maybe have a bigger part on the show. And it was my first big role. And so, of course, I was overjoyed that they wanted me to stick around. None of us knew how big the project was going to be or if it would even go past the first season. But the cast was incredible. The crew was really nice. And so when we went to after the pilot, when we went to season, they wrote in a new character, and that was Dr. Audrey Benjamin, played by Sophia McAvoy. And we had a very instant connection at the table read. And it was just a very good fit. We knew that right away, and production was very happy. They knew that they had a very strong thing on their hands, and so, we reshot the first episode, and everything kind of started from there. I think that the Audrey ship, so what they call Alex and Audrey, the relationship that we're portraying, is a very open and honest one. It's gritty and it's messy, but at the end of the day, it's realistic. You know, they both love each other very much, and you can feel that in everything that they do. But, you know, specifically talking for Alex, she's a very broken person. She has a very broken background, and it's hard for her to trust people. She's a bit of a lone wolf, and, you know, I really loved how the writers managed to flip that kind of cliche really on its head of like having that lone wolf character, but still having her be someone who's so passionate, and we saw that in the first episode where you know she takes the bullet for Frank, but then later, you know, her opening up to Audrey very quickly, and yeah, she's not like the cliche of like the lone wolf detective, and I really like the directions that we've taken with the characters, and especially obviously the things that I know about the pilot that we shot for Inferno. That would mean a lot to continue telling that story. Yeah, so it hasn't been easy. I don't really talk about my personal life that much, because I feel like my job is my job, and that's what people need to know me for. But I mean, obviously, I'm engaged to the love of my life, my beautiful fiance, and when we were shooting the majority of Westbound, Sophia was in relationships as well, but we have always managed to just have a good balance, you know. It's not easy going into work every day and having to flip the switch of I need to pretend to be in love with someone. But it does help when it is someone that you really respect and appreciate. And I'm very proud to call Sophia a very dear friend of mine. So that really made it very easy. But then, of course, you know, you know, people sometimes have trouble distinguishing fiction from reality. And so while we were both very close, we also knew that there was a certain line that we could not cross. And no, I'm okay. I'm just trying to look for words. It's gonna happen quite a bit. We get invited to a lot of parties and premieres and stuff as the two of us, because obviously people want to see Audrey content. People want to see us getting along and being friendly, and obviously pretty much every question that I get about Westbound involves Sophia or Audrey or that relationship, which I get. It's not easy to portray a love story like that. and a lot of people, you know, that representation is very important to both of us. So yeah, we try to do the best we can to give people what they want, but also kind of balance that with the reality of life, where obviously we both have people waiting for us when we leave those events. Yeah. Yeah, so the first time that something like that happened, because a lot of things happened in a very short time span. The first time that it happened was when there was a man who had been sending threatening, well, not really threatening, but sending very weird messages to both of us. And we could tell based on the messages that he sent that he had trouble distinguishing fact from fiction. In the sense that he seemed very intent that me and Sophia, or me and Audrey within his context, should be together. And there was one moment where he basically, for some reason, got onto the lot where we shoot. We were standing outside in between scenes. We were catching some air, and he walked up to us and he demanded that the episode that had just aired had been a fight between our two characters, and he demanded that there was an apology between us. And it was a very scary and unpredictable situation, because you don't know what's gonna happen. You know, he could pull out a gun, he could pull out a knife, and that situation was diffused pretty quickly. One of the other actors, actually, who was there with us, intervened, and he went away. And security put the whole lot basically on lockdown, trying to find him, but they didn't find him. I felt at that moment, I didn't feel unsafe. I was more confused how that could have possibly happened. How, you know, we have to go through so many security checks to go in. And I have a face that's on a Wikipedia page and on a billboard on Sunset, you know, so the fact that I have to go through all these procedures, but for some reason he could just walk up to us. That was very, I couldn't, that was tough to process. He asked us to apologize, and then eventually we kind of just went along with his game because we didn't want to upset him. But then he kind of demanded that we kissed, and he kept on calling us by our character names, and it didn't come to that. But yeah, that whole thing was very weird. And then obviously afterwards, the fact that they didn't find him, that freaked us out. And then my fiance actually got roped into that, because he ended up sending threatening messages, and the police, I don't know what happened there, but they kind of reassured us that things were being monitored and things were being tracked. And then, yeah, obviously then the Winter Blues premiere happened, but before that, another piece to that puzzle, we were shooting season 3 at that time, and there had been talks about a possible spin-off with our 2 characters, and that was something that Sophia and I had talked about a lot. And in between scenes, we kind of fantasized about what the story would be, and when we got that question, the executives basically wanted us to one-up our Aldry game, and not only our Aldry game, but our real life game too. They wanted us to do more things together, post online that we were doing more things together, because they wanted to generate interest and more people, seeing how great we were, and getting people hyped, because if the spin-off would happen, then it would be us as the lead characters, right? And that was kind of, that was right when me and my fiance, we just recently got engaged again. But back when that happened, I proposed, and we were just in the process of figuring out what we were going to do with that when that whole question from the executives came. And I'll be honest, it wasn't a question. It was more of a demand, to put in the work of actively fanning the flames and fueling the rumors that had been circulating since the beginning of the show. Because ever since the first episode aired, where we kind of became a thing, there have been people online speculating about whether we were together in real life, or we needed to be together in real life, or we deserved to be, or, and I've been together with my fiance for over 6 years now. That was never an option. And so while me and Sophia were trying to balance, and I don't want to get into Sophia's story, because that's not my story to tell, but Sophia had her own relationship, had her own, things within that relationship that were things that she was dealing with, and it just came at a really bad time for both of us. But we knew that we had to do something, because the network was, I don't want to use that term, David. I don't want to use that term because I know you need sound bites. We don't even know if we're going to use this yet. Okay? Just please let me tell my story in my words. Please, David. Okay. The network didn't really leave us a choice. They wanted us to up the game, and it wasn't a question. Well, if we didn't, then obviously they would reconsider that spinoff. That was the implication of that. Yeah, that whole situation really weighed on me, and it made me very angry. I lost a lot of sleep over it, and my relationship suffered over it. And then eventually I reached a point where I couldn't really take it anymore. And that's when I decided to post my engagement. I don't regret telling the whole world about my relationship, despite the fact that I keep my private life private. I just wanted to clear the air. But I obviously did it in a moment of emotion. And I should have been smarter about it, because the consequence of that was not only for me, but for Sophia and the whole team as well. I remembered that there was a moment where I just realized that, a TV show is not just made with actors, it's made with makeup people and lighting people and writers and editors, and if that spin-off show would have been canceled because of me, then I would have denied hundreds of people work. And people need work, and I felt really bad about that. They told me that I breached contract. They were very unhappy. And that caused a lot of trouble for me and for my relationship. That was very hard on both of us. And then something that I don't want to talk about. I want to keep this. I want to talk about the show. But that stress that we were under, that all kind of came to a halt when, obviously, the Winter Blooms premiere happened. Me and Sophia were very distant. She was very angry at me, and I understand why, because we'd made a deal, we were just gonna stick this out, and we were gonna get our show, and I ruined that. So she had every right to be angry at me. But then, when we got to the premiere, obviously you put your smiley faces on, and we did the things that they asked of us. We held hands very fleetingly when we knew that a camera would see it. We waved to the fans. When I got questions on the red carpet about my co-stars, I always name dropped her because that's what they wanted me to do. And I'm not saying that I lied, because I didn't lie. I love her. She's one of my best friends. She's an incredible actress and an incredibly grateful actor to work with. She's very gracious. But it all felt like, I was wearing a mask because everything happened in such a blur, because I knew that I would come home to. I wasn't gonna come home. Sorry. Can we cut that out? Sorry. Yeah. Okay. The premiere was. I barely paid attention to the movie. We were sitting next to each other, and she was sitting very stiff, and she was very rigid, and all I really wanted to do was just talk to her. But obviously that wasn't going to happen. And then afterwards, we were all kind of filed into the reception, and there were other people that I knew, and we just played like there was nothing wrong. And then a waiter came up to us, and I still had a full glass, and Sophia still had a full glass, so I was confused as to why he was coming up to us. But then when he kind of turned to face me, even before I recognized him, he started yelling at the both of us. Mainly at me. He was making a big scene. He was yelling at me for posting my engagement. He called it lies. He called it evil and horrible, and some other words that I'm not going to repeat, but Sophia came she stood in between the two of us, and people were around us were noticing the commotion, obviously, and I'm guessing they were probably thinking, why is that waiter yelling at these two? But yeah, she started kind of yelling back, and he had this look of, he had dark, almost black eyes. He looked so angry. And I kind of realized that in that instant that this was going to be his final stand, that he was planning, that he had planned for this. And so he pulled out a knife, and the next, obviously that happened within a span of 5 maybe 10 seconds, but I remember it kind of frame by frame, as if everything just kind of stood still and just moved like stop motion. He got her pretty bad. And then next thing that I knew that I was on the ground, and yeah, there was one of there's like fluorescent lighting, and one of those was like kind of flickering. That's what I remember. I was staring at that lamp, and then there were people asking me questions, and all I could see was Sophia next to me, and she wasn't moving, and there was a lot of blood. And that was terrifying. I don't think there's much more to say, David. I barely remember a lot of it. I was in shock. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can talk about it, but it's an ongoing legal thing also, so I can only talk about the things that are, yeah. I mean, I'll answer what I can, but I won't be able to answer everything. Okay. And I also want to keep that as vague as I can. Okay, that's not the main focus of this. Okay. Yeah, so it came to my attention that after the whole premiere incident, I got back to work, and I was just getting kind of back in the groove of things, and obviously Sophia was recovering and eventually kind of went back to work too. And that's when I received the information that there was an individual that kind of that we are kind of closely connected to, and she was hired on the crew of the show. Yeah, that is an ongoing thing. Obviously, people probably have seen the articles, have read the news of the things that happened after that, but there is a whole story connected to that where she basically blackmailed one of the executive producers to get her a spot on the crew, and she very much abused that position to kind of have a type of vengeance for stuff that happened in the past, obviously causing incidents that got out of hand. and I did things that I'm not proud of there, but obviously when people see an article that an actress from a famous show punched an innocent writer's assistant in the face, obviously that gets spun. And I understand that the public opinion of me changed to where I look like I'm abusing my crew. But that was very meticulously orchestrated by her, and obviously, given what happened after that, I think, or at least I hope, that the public's perception of me has changed after that. Because obviously, I would never ever do anything to someone that I work with, or no one at all that, yeah, I need a second, sorry. I just wouldn't do that. She forced me to, I wouldn't, she said horrible things, but we don't have to get into it. Sorry, can we please just skip the whole Lena thing? We don't, again, like I said, it's an ongoing thing, and can we just skip to like Inferno? I'm imagining we've got plenty of stuff to talk about there. Okay, good. So, yeah, obviously, after everything happened, the network actually greenlit the pilot of what would be called Inferno. So, I remember that me and Sophia had a lot of talks about how excited we were because everything that happened to us, had been horrible and extremely traumatic, but at least it had led to something good. And that was us getting the spin-off that we worked so hard for. And that we literally, shed blood, sweat, and tears for. And too much blood for any of our tastes. But, yeah, we were just really excited. Yeah, it was little things at first. I want to preface everything that's about to happen by saying that Lenny, who is or was the showrunner for Inferno, is a wonderful woman. And obviously the things that have happened and that we're going to talk about, the problem that we had with Westbound is that the executives and the entire higher up structure of the show made it very hard for us because they did not protect us. And the difference that we felt very quickly when we started production on Inferno, and even pre-production when we had meetings and everything, is that this was a much warmer environment. And I think, or I really hope at least, that the network did that for a reason and wanted to give us the signal that they were going to protect us this time around. Obviously now we are, number 1 and 2 on the call sheet. So now we're the people that have a say in things, and we wanted to do things right, and Lenny was absolutely wonderful in that. No, David, I'm just saying it because a lot of shit happened, but none of it was her fault because she tried every step of the way to protect us. Inferno was very, very different. Okay, I mean, you don't have to use it, but I mean, there's a big difference to me. But, okay, never mind then. Let's skip to the next question. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I promised you I'd talk about everything, so obviously we can't talk about him. But it might take it's all still kind of fresh, Okay. Sebastian, when I first met him, it was at a table read. And I remember that he looks, he's 17. He was 17, but he looks younger than that. And I remember the first table read we did for the pilot, that I thought that he was like one of the network's like sons or something. I didn't realize he was part of the cast. And he was kind of shy. He didn't really talk to many people. But then when he sat down, and he obviously had the name tag, Sebastian Mendez, Dante. Then I was like, oh, obviously I'd read the script. And then it kind of clicked for me, and I felt really bad that I hadn't introduced myself. So in the first break, obviously I went up to him, and it was a very nice conversation. He was a very polite kid. He seemed very humble, very grateful that he'd gotten the opportunity. So me and Sophia were instantly very like, oh, it was, he really felt like the little brother of the cast instantly. He was, because he was the only, minor, and we all felt very protective of him, very instantly. But then obviously things started coming out that, these are probably things that the public doesn't really know, but warts and all, it came out that he was kind of put in an apartment by production in a very, very shady part of town, and I couldn't for the life of me understand why they had put this kid who'd never been to LA in his life, without parents. Well, I mean, we all basically thought he was like an orphan or something, because he never really talked about his parents so much. And and production really let him down. Well, not production, but just I don't even know who's to blame for what happened, but when I heard that he had been not even put in a hotel where at least there's some type of social control or CCTV cameras, whatever, like, I don't understand how they went through all that energy to ensure that me and Sophia had better protection after everything that happened. And then they take a 17-year-old kid from a high school somewhere in the middle of nowhere and put him into a spotlight in Hollywood, and then just dump him into an apartment where he has to fend for himself. I still can't understand that. I did take him in. At some point, I tried to make a deal about it, like with the network, and I was just like, you can't do this. And they listened to me. They gave him a hotel room, but they were setting things up, and and I had to. I wanted to take him in because we were shooting at that point, and we were just a little family. And he was a little brother to me, and I wanted to take care of him like a little brother. And I didn't want to leave him out in the open like that. I have a brother back home in Europe, and he's older than Sebastian, but obviously there being so many miles between us, it's there's a lot of things that I regret. There's a lot of things that I wish that I could have shared with him, or the other way around. And when I saw Sebastian, I mean, obviously I'm not gonna lie, I saw a bit of what I could have done better with Finn, and him being put in a position like that, I just wanted to help him. Yes, that is when his drug problem kind of surfaced or started to come up. He never talked about doing anything drug related before this. He was a football player. He was in drama. He was a very straight-laced kid. But then obviously he started doing drugs, which we now know obviously were supplied by Theo, our director. And that set a lot of things in motion. Yeah. Yeah, can't believe we're only at this point of the story. God. We had the wrap party of shooting the pilot, and we knew already that we were going to have a full season because the full season was already ordered. The pilot was more of a matter of, audience ratings and seeing what stuck and what parts they liked and disliked. And I mean, it was a celebration of us having shot something that we were all very proud of. And then obviously that was all soured by how do you want me to tell this? What I did that day and then what came out afterwards, or just... Okay. Well, again, a lot of these things are... You're not going to be able to use a lot of this because it's all just still ongoing investigation stuff. Okay. I after shooting, I was walking through one of the production hallways and I heard a noise, and when I walked in, because the noise came from a closet and it sounded like there was something like a struggle or something. And I remember thinking that I feel horrible for saying this, but I remember thinking that I was going to catch people in the act, having sex, and I was in my head kind of speculating on who it could have been. And so I pulled that door open and I see Theo and Sophia and sorry, give me a minute. He was hurting her. And I saw that. And they both saw that I saw that. And to make sure that I'd forgotten about what I saw, Theo put something in my drink. And that's all I remember from that night. I remember being in the hospital for a bit and being confused. And I was terrified that I'd gotten drunk, because I don't drink alcohol, and that I tried to get into the car because they found me in the parking lot. And I don't know. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. Yeah, it was the network insisted on keep doing a private investigation on that. So it was a very weird mixture of like police and press and public eye, with them just wanting to keep it quiet. And I remember thinking, like, I don't remember what happened, and why are they hiding things? Why are they hiding things from me? But then obviously, Sebastian confessed that he'd been the one to do that to me. I mean, a part of me didn't want to believe it. A part of me was just like, there's no way that he would do that to me, because I took care of him. You know, he's not that stupid. He wouldn't. But then another part of me obviously knew that he'd gotten addicted, probably, and that maybe he wanted to keep, I was trying to make sense of his motive, and I was like, maybe he wanted to keep quiet that he was on drugs, or he didn't want me to tell anyone, or he confessed, so I was just trying to make sense of why he would do that. And then obviously that weighed on him very much. And now that we know what we know, that it was Theo giving him drugs and making him promises and telling him to blame it on another crew member, and eventually forcing him to take the fall for what Theo had done to me. Can you please just ask specific questions here, because I don't know how to word things otherwise. Okay. I got a message from him, a text message. I'm not gonna say what's in it, but it was obvious that he was gonna do something. And we were in the car, so we got to the hotel that he was finally put in. I was the only one that received a message, which is how I knew that he felt guilty about what happened. And to this day, I'm still trying to make sense of what I should have done. But there's a very clear culprit. There's a lot of culprits, but there's just, if you need to point the finger at what happened to that kid, what happened to Sebastian Mendez, then you have to look at Theo. Because he gave him drugs, and a lot of stuff the investigation's gonna have to, make clear, but Theo blackmailed him. And nothing that I could have done could have prevented that, I think. But that doesn't mean that I don't think about it every single day. What I could have done better, what I should have done better. Because I failed him. I failed him. Production failed him. Theo failed him most of all, but that kid should not have. That kid should have been here. And then, obviously, he, the whole thing kind of came out. Yeah, hang on. A lot of things would hinge on what I would remember. And eventually I did remember what happened and the things that I saw. And that basically opened the floodgates. That opened this whole thing. And most of this is Sophia's story to tell, but Theo was just a horrible man. Horrible, awful narcissist that just wanted to get his way. I mean, production, he wasn't even, we were at his funeral, and like barely 48 hours later, we got a message that production was going to start up again soon. Because obviously it was either canceling things altogether or going ahead as planned. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't understand that he wasn't even cold yet, you know? And all of that just reminded me how cold and distant and factual this sector really is. It's just a matter of we have to deliver an entire season on this day, so we need to start shooting, you know? And obviously, given what happened after that, I think it kind of boiled down to dead people you can replace. People that are in hospital that you have to wait until they get better. That's always a question mark. But dead people is just replacing. They didn't say anything about whether the show would change but she was just, they were looking at recasting the role. How do you think I felt? This was incredibly traumatic. You know, it's always incredibly tragic when something like that happens, but to have it happen in such a way, so closely involving so many people on that set. And I remember thinking when we were going through with it, like, I can't be on set with an abuser. I can't. I refuse to. We wanted to do the show right. That's why we went through all that shit that we went through on Westbound. You know? The executives didn't take us seriously. Half of the executives were being blackmailed. You know, nobody was looking out for us. And then here we had people looking out for us. But things still happened. And I think that just boils down to how rotten this whole system is. Because people who die can just be replaced the fucking very next week because this show must go on. And I would have had to stand there and act opposite this fresh, new, young actor that would have gotten the role of a lifetime, and all I could see was what would have supposed to be, what would have. Sorry. And then eventually the network took seriously the abuse allegations, because I fucking hate using that word, but that was what they were, allegations. I mean, but Sophia testified to it, I testified to it, Lenny had our backs, and the network ran with it. And I think the network was incredibly grateful to have a scapegoat for everything that had happened, and they could wash themselves of blame because they could say, here's this director that abused, one of the lead actresses, his girlfriend, that gave drugs to a minor on set, that blackmailed that minor, that drugged the other lead actress when she was uncovering that abuse. They were like, probably, I don't think you hit a gold mine in PR that much. So they just went with it. They did a smear campaign against him. But because they did that so fast, or someone leaked it, they didn't tell us. So we get hounded by journalists, and I feel bad about telling Sophia's story. So me and Sophia are just trying to make sense of things and trying to coordinate how much we can say, and saying that we want to do interviews together instead of like apart, because we don't want to, And finally she says, I'm coming over. And she says, I'm getting in the car, and I'm gonna come over to yours, and we can see what we're gonna do about this. And then obviously that's where it happened. It was a misunderstanding. It's just a misunderstanding. Because the doorbell rang, and I thought it was her. So I didn't even bother to check. There's a lot of things that I should have done differently. I opened the door, and that's the last thing that I remember. Actually, that's not true. I have one other memory of that. And that's just my head bouncing against the floor as he dragged me. He dragged me into the living room. And my entire face was slippery. I thought that he thought that he dropped a bucket on me or something. But when I woke up, we were 2 weeks later. And that's where we are now, recovering. I feel good. I'm getting better, but it shouldn't have happened. As soon as that campaign started, they should have had police. They should have protected both of us. No, I don't blame people. The only person I blame is him, because he was holding the bat. He drove up to our house with the full intent to kill me. And the only reason why he didn't is because my fiancé just could overpower him. I honestly don't need to know what's going to happen to him. The only thing I need to know is that he needs to stay away from me and my fiancé and Sophia and everyone. He needs to. I don't ever want to see him again. If there ever is a trial, I'm not going. That's a tough question. With everything that happened, I feel like it can't get worse than anything that we've experienced in the last couple of months. It just can't be. There have to be decent people left in this town. I don't know if I'd be ready to do this season. Frankly, I don't think it's going to be up to me, or even me and Sophia to decide. I think that with everything that happened, it's just going to be one of those weird conspiracy things. I don't want to make this ruin my passion for acting. When I was in the hospital and things were looking really bad in terms of prognosis, and they told my fiancé that they weren't sure if I was ever going to walk again or talk again, or because they just didn't know what would happen if they put me out of that coma. And I've noticed, I've grown so much. I get better every day. But back when I had to relearn, and I was thinking things, but the other part of my brain just wasn't, I was moving faster than my body was, and my point is that I want to get back to work. I'm not sure if it'll be Alex Monroe. I think that is a decision that's not made by me. If the network wants to continue Inferno, I would be open to doing it again. But I would need to know that Sophia would want it too. There's no Alex without Audrey. And there's no Foster without Sophia when it comes to everything about this production, so we'll see. No, I think we've covered it all, David, and I'm exhausted. So you just let me know if there's anything that you missed or that the audio messed up or whatever. But I just really need to lay down right now. Okay. Thank you for letting me tell my story. I'm still not sure if I want you to use it, but I mean, you've given me a lot to think